Thank you very much for being with us today. I want to learn a little bit more about the history of Xing, the company you founded and that you're leading now. A company that you say empower social network. So tell us a little bit about you and why did you decide to start this company?
It was in 2003 when I read a book called The Tipping Point from Malcolm Gladwell. You probably know it. And I realized that I'm one of those guys he describes as connector, who likes to meet people, like to introduce people. And I always thought about this idea, like I want to get in contact with the contacts of my contacts, because here's the greatest business value. You know this kind of 6 degrees of separation theory, we are all connected, but it doesn't help you if someone is like 4 degrees away. So you want to find the people who are just one contact away. And at that time, 2003, internet was really, it was like the nuclear winter of internet. And when I set up the project and invited all my friends, 50% said like, Lars, are you nuts to start something in the internet? We just learned it doesn't work. The bubble bursted and you're starting something new, is it true? And the other 50% joined. And so I had my first 472 users. And since at that time also internet advertising was completely dead, I had to start with a business model on the first day. So I invented this subscription model for us. So we have a premium membership which costs you €4.95, €5.95, sorry, and a basic service which is for free. And out of this 472 users, we have now the last reported number is 5.7 million members and over 420,000 paying customers.
So what does Xing offer to users, the free users or the power users, so that people understand more about what can you do with Xing?
Xing is a social network for business professionals. So we don't offer some photo sharing or something like this. It's just for the professional users. And for the professional users, it is the market leading site in Europe. We are the market leader also in South America and also well positioned in China. We are offering 3 things. We help to find the relevant people faster than ever before. It's about making business online, and making business online meaning finding a new supplier, finding a new vendor, but also manage your career, find a new job or hire the right talents. And the third thing is really about contact management. Always stay up to date with the entire people you know. And you know, like 25% of all email addresses are out of date after 1 year, and with Xing you always stay connected. You always know when people are changing, and you always have the latest up-to-date information.
So when you started Xing, and even now, I mean, there were a lot of competitors. So some of your competitors have, for instance, Facebook has 70 million users. LinkedIn, which is probably closer to your company in terms of focus on business networking, has around 20 million users. So what do you think makes Xing different from them? So what makes you convinced that Xing is going to succeed in this space?
I think we first should talk about what kind of space are we in. So social networking is definitely one of the hippest words last year and this year, and everybody says that this is the latest trend. But looking at social networking a bit more directly, you see there are 2 big areas. There's this whole thing around friendship, fun, and being bitten by vampires and hamburgers, etc. This is definitely the Facebooks and MySpace of this world, where you share about photos, and the user driver is much more about belonging. It's cool, it's trendy, you want to belong to something. And you have something different. You have the professional networks, and there you have Xing and an American competitor. And the user drivers here is different. It's finding the right experts in a faster time. It's about helping people to foster business. It's about efficiency, it's about productivity. Things you definitely ask you sometimes when you're on a more Facebook-related side, like, I'm driving here so much time, like, does it really help me? And professionals don't have so much time actually to spend. So it is looking at our industry, looking at business networking, we're very proud to say that we are the most active business community. It's like a room full of business people you can talk to. You get answers, and this is more important than just having some millions more members. So even our direct competitor, we are beating worldwide in activity, in time spent, in page views. So we created a very online, live resource for everyday use. Looking even more closely at our service, being the market leader in Europe definitely gives you some good idea about our focus. It is really this kind of global, local approach. Most of the business is done still local, in the local language, and the primary business language in the world might be English, but when it comes to Spain, when it comes to Germany, when it comes to France or Italy, people speak Italian, French or German. And this is where we are strong. And with our network, the core asset is the 90 million peer-to-peer connections we're managing. Like, if you're on Xing and I'm putting a connection to you, it's like 1 out of 90 million, and we're adding every day thousands of new connections. And Xing is used for discovering and utilizing your relationships for business.
Let's go back to when you started the company, and so what were the most difficult challenges? So you mentioned some. You were starting in the bust, so where no one wanted to hear about internet. What else was, so what was most difficult, and how did you deal with it?
I think the first difficult thing was setting the right price. I knew I wanted to start with subscription as business model and finding the right price. So I looked at similar business models like online dating, for instance, and I said, of course it is much more worse than online dating, so it should cost at least the same amount, like €17.95 was the first price we had in mind. But then we realized that once you have success on the dating side, you turn off. At least you should. So on business, it's the opposite. So the more connections you make, the more success you have, the longer you pay. So I realized that I can take a much lower price because I'm keeping the users for years and maybe decades. Because we are serving the time from 25 to like 65. Or in Germany now it's 69 probably. So I took we took the right price point, I think, was €5.95. And this helped us to have the cash flow positive, the company cash flow positive after 90 days of operation. Okay. And then we took this first angel money, then we took VC, and definitely the biggest challenge was then in 2006, deciding like, what should we do with the company? Should we sell it? Should we just grow it like it is? Or shall we take the company to the next level and going IPO? And definitely taking the company IPO was the biggest challenge in Xing's history.
What about now? What do you think are the biggest challenge for Xing going ahead?
A big challenge always is managing growth. It's a hyper-growth company. Last year we doubled revenue from 10 million to close to 20 million. We have a high visibility in the future revenues, but we want to grow not just in the B2C area, we also want to grow more and more in the B2B area, where we see lots of potential. And of course, managing the human resources, coming from like 1-2 employees now to over 130, and growing this maybe to 200 plus. And these are also human challenges we all have.
And how is it, I mean, you are in a space or that is where probably almost all your competitors are based in the US, most of them in Silicon Valley. And you already mentioned that, for instance, one of the big difference that you have is the multilingual platform. So what else about being based in Europe for a high-tech, high-growth company? So are there advantages and disadvantages in having kind of a startup in a high-tech?
I think the advantage for us being European is actually that we can attract lots of talent also to our offices in Hamburg, in Barcelona, Istanbul, or even Beijing, because we are a visible player in the European internet space. Another advantage is definitely that we have the ability to take the company public. We don't have Mr. Sarbanes and Mr. Oxley ruining the startup scene in America. Other advantages are that since we're local, we understand the differences between the cultures. Europe is mostly seen from Americans as one country, and the capital is London. And every European would immediately say, like, I think you're wrong with this assumption. So France is different to Germany. Spain is different to Italy. Of course, we share the same history, thousands of years, but still you have to really be present. You have to be local to understand the real needs of your users. And this is something what we can serve much better than an American competitor. So what are the disadvantages, if there are any? We don't have the dollar, so we definitely don't have a exchange risk. But still, Silicon Valley is a very vibrant community. So within like 50 kilometers, you have hundreds of companies in the same area. And you discuss new concepts in a much smaller area and distance. So you're closer to the pulse of internet time. But disadvantages of being in Silicon Valley is getting less and less. We have a growing economy here in Europe. We have great ideas coming from Europe, like take Skype for instance, and other companies being built in Europe with this kind of European approach, which is definitely different. And having the ability to scale works also here in Europe. But you have to understand the legislation.
That's interesting. In fact, you've been acquiring companies and integrating them. What has been your approach in this integration process? It's always a challenge for even large companies to integrate acquisition. You have been acquiring at least a few companies in Spain, you've been acquiring a company in China. So how is this integration process? Have you followed specific rules?
I said we set our own rules in this kind of process, and with every new acquisition we learn what to do even better by the next one. We bought now so far 3 companies, 2 in Spain and 1 in Turkey. And we are adding this to our very fast, high organic growth, what we already have as a company. But looking at Spain, why did we acquire 2 companies? We said, like, we need the local knowledge and this kind of change or local adaptation to the Spanish market, and having this kind of first hundreds, 200, 300,000 users to really have a presence here. So therefore we decided that we would acquire a company. And we acquired 2 because there are 2 companies in our space, both a bit different. The opportunity what we had was actually that we already had the scaling problems. We've been through this, and they would have needed to invest lots of money to set a higher technology, to change the software architecture to really scale to like 10 million, 20 million, 30 million people. We already have done this, so they decided so joining Xing would be much easier. So the pitfalls of the acquisitions, and you stated correctly, most of the acquisitions actually fail. So we did 3, so why did the 3 were successful in our points of view? We immediately had an integration plan set from the day of signing. It was always clear that we integrate the entire users to our main database. We didn't think of keeping the local ones, so it was from the day of the acquisition clear that they have to move to our software technology, so that you just have one common base. And maybe it was also easier for us to acquire companies because we're not a German company. We have people from 21 nations working at Xing. It's like an international hub of people. We really like the cultural differences and different viewpoints to really understand the local markets much better. So we're giving the people we acquire lots of things to say in the process. And now we are becoming really one global team which is acting.
You mentioned some of the challenges that, of course, you will face going ahead, and there's been, and also the fact that there's been a lot of action in this space recently. Particularly, actually 2 days ago, Google announced an initiative called Friend Connect, and the day before, Facebook had announced that they were moving towards more open portability of the profiles of the users. So there is basically a trend towards universal standards for social networking software and more open portability of data. What do you think? Do you think this is going to happen? And what do you think your company will do in relation to this trend?
We are watching very closely all the trends which goes on. We were one of those who immediately supported Open Social as the first European company. We are close at this kind of trends and following everything. Does it make sense to be completely portable, and do social networks really want this? There is a question mark, I would say, because having the users and having the connections is the most precious goods what we have. But still we think that giving the users the ability to choose and to manage their profiles, maybe not just at ours, also at other places, and connect this to third-party software is definitely the right trend to go. Of course, in Europe we also have legislation issues like data privacy with different laws in this kind of area. So I think also there's a legal challenge what European companies face, and a legal opportunity because the users know this data is safe. We don't have a Patriot Act where FBI and other government agencies just go to MySpace or Facebook or our competitor and say, like, we want all your data. This won't never happen in Europe, and this is something which will evolve even more as the advantage of being European. Still, looking at the software industry, what is more successful? Is it a closed system like Windows, or is it like Linux, which is more successful? On the server side, everybody's using Linux because we have standards here. And this helps definitely to create more value for the user. And we should always not think about like who owns what. We should think what is the best value for the user. Where does the user have the best user experience? And this is what we are focusing. And if there are things which make sense from the user point of view, we're going to support it.
Okay, thank you very much. This was very interesting, and wish the best of luck to your company, and I'm sure it's going to be very successful. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.